Hello again. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwane's budget speech on Wednesday missed an opportunity to deal meaningfully with poverty and restoring people's confidence in government. That's the view of the Institute for Economic Justice. The organization says Treasury has decided to prioritize the interests of bankers by continuing on an unsustainable path of fiscal consolidation. Let's discuss this now with the Institute's Zimbali Mncube. Good afternoon, Zimbali. Thank you very much for your time. I guess just having read that introduction and sort of paraphrasing your sentiments around the budget speech, you would have hoped that the minister would have had a different use or distribution of the extra 180 billion rand in tax revenue instead of paying banks in terms of the debt that South Africa has got. Am I correct?
Thank you for having me, but then yes, indeed, that's our view and the view of broader civil society. We think that it was a missed opportunity to ensure that these resources are channeled into alleviating poverty, unemployment, and inequality, which we currently see in our context. Over 10 million depend on the SRD grant, for instance, and we know that there's 12 million that are people that are currently unemployed, and hunger is increasing. And so these are issues that are currently facing a majority of the people out there, and the budget plays an important role in advancing and protecting socio-economic rights, and this is what should have been done by the minister.
The balancing act he had to do in a world where you're dealing with the effects, the long-lasting effects, if I may say so, Zimbali, of COVID-19 pandemic, must have been a difficult one. Don't you think he tried to balance, for example, by extending the social grant of distress grant of 350 to next year?
We think he did not try hard enough, because despite the extension, there is no commitment to include this grant or expand this grant rather further than next year. Although we welcome the fact that the president has acknowledged that it's not enough and he's willing to engage civil society. However, we feel that the grant could have been expanded to the food poverty line without compromising the fiscal position of the country's resources.
And what number is that? Because I keep on reading different numbers of that poverty line. Sometimes it's just below 1,000 rand. Sometimes it's above that. What is the appropriate number according to your research, Zimbali?
So the current food poverty line, which is it measures the minimum energy intake of food that a person needs to have in order to survive per month. It's currently 624. It's been increased. And then you have also the upper bound food poverty line, which is 1,335. And so if you look at the current SRD grant, it sits at 350, which is way below 624. And is way below when you consider inflation. It's not enough to cover a person's basic necessities. And taking into account the report that was done by the DSD, it shows that most people use the grant to purchase necessities such as food and electricity. And so it's worrying that this grant remains at this insufficient level and was not even increased to consider inflation.
What would make your institute look at this budget? What are these things that would have made you say, yeah, this is great, this is a sustainable budget, this is the one that's going to start helping us fight and win the battle, the struggle rather, against poverty, for example? What are these things you'd want to see in a budget?
So we know that the budget plays an important role in advancing human rights. And so this should be the starting point. The starting point shouldn't be that we need to stabilize debt. It should be that we need to protect and advance human rights. And so we feel that there should have been an adequate investment into public services. For instance, their health and education will be receiving cuts when you consider the budget in real terms. That means taking into account inflation and population growth. And so these are essential public services that play an important role in developing human capital and ensuring that people are healthy and have the skills to participate in the economy. And so we think that the budget should look at these public resources and public services as institutions that can capacitate people to participate meaningfully and live a dignified life. So beyond and above that, there also should be a strategy to create jobs. When you look at the industrial policy support, the president which spoke lengthily in his zona, there's still not enough allocations there. And so we felt like the budget should have played a much more important role in ensuring that industrial policy is supported and we reverse the deindustrialization trend.
Yeah. Okay, so he has not done that, and in your view as the Institute, he's missed an opportunity. Hopefully, do you think he should focus on addressing it, maybe, if he's listening to your concerns in the midterm budget coming up later in the year, around about October or so, or that might be too late because, as I've said, the effects, for example, of the pandemic are long-standing, and we already had structural challenges we're facing, and as you've said, high unemployment, particularly among young people.
Yes, unfortunately, people will be barely surviving by the time we reach the medium-term budget policy statement. However, it will be important going forward for not only the Minister of Finance, but the President to take leadership and engage different stakeholders on the possibilities of ensuring that people are protected and can live a dignified life. And the starting point for this is to engage in how we can implement a universal basic income grant. We've set a few proposals and financing mechanisms, but we feel like they should be engaged further, and a universal basic income grant is implemented as soon as
Zimbali Mncube, thank you very much. He's, of course, from the Institute for Economic Justice. Thank you for your time and your insights. They are not happy with the current budget. They want a different approach to the budget.